Hi students, welcome back to Microbiology Made Easy by Dr. Muhammad Khalil. Today's topic is on where you deal your life with most of the ticks, mites, lice and fleas. Here you have a clinical vignette which is presented where a 12-year-old boy is seen by his family doctor who complains of fever, severe headache, muscle aches and a petechial rash covering his body. The mother mentioned that the rash started on the wrist and ankles, then progressed inwards to cover his body. On questioning trip, he had gone to West Virginia. His mother remembers removing several ticks from his legs after he returned home. Now, students, what you have to concentrate here, that every clinical vignette that is presented to you is really challenging, and definitely there's a solution or clues that you have to crack. So if you want as me to guide you properly, so thing which you have to focus is basically the rash which is covering his body, but mind you, he was also describing the rash that is presented or started on the wrist and ankles, then progressed inwards. Clue number 2. And third, where you are preparing for very high competitive exams like USML and all, he also describes you with a geographical area saying it's West Virginia, mostly which comes in the south or the central southeastern areas of United States of America. And another thing is her mother. This history is very important. When you elicit the history, you have to keep in mind that more the patient talks, you have to be a good listener. So the mother tells the doctor that she had removed several ticks from his leg after he returned home. So keeping this in your mind, what do you think could be the answer? Let's proceed from here. This is the vector, which is a typical tick found, and this is a typical rash that has been presented on the palms and the soles. Then it got distributed inward to cover his body. Now these are the areas which are being covered. I mean, what you have to learn from this is basically this is all the tick belt area. Tick belt area, West Virginia, which is one of the uh, area which is more predominant with these ticks. So now this is the histopathological slide, which also helps you out to know or learn the pathogenesis of what exactly is happening here. So this is how they go and attack the endothelial lining of the blood vessel. They go and reset themselves. The habitat of these vectors basically is they go and the bacteria which causes this disease, they go and lodge themselves in the endothelial lining of the blood vessels. So my question to you, my dear students, is what is the organism and how do you describe it? So if you want me to describe a microbiology point of view, yes, they are gram-negative bacilli, almost small in size, and etiology, as you have already seen, it is basically a tick-borne, and geographical distribution might really help you out to crack most half of the answer question. Clinical manifestation, yes, it has the patient has presented with fever, severe headache, muscle aches, rash all over his body. So let's learn about the pathogen later on, but the organism, keeping all this history in mind, in the very good clinical window that is presented to you, the organism is Rickettsia rickettsii. Treatment for this is basically doxycycline. For all groups of Rickettsia, the treatment or drug of choice is doxycycline. So the organism here is Rickettsia rickettsii because the tick that causes or present in this, the organism present in this tick is spread all over the South Atlantic, southern, eastern, and south central states, where West Virginia is one of the component in this geographical distribution. So this is how you should uh, go step by step, component by component, to come to a final conclusion. Let's go to another clinical vignette, very nicely described. While volunteering with Doctors Without Borders, a young doctor visits a refugee camp where an epidemic has broken out. Many of the sick refugees are experiencing high fever, severe headache, chills, muscle aches. Physical examination revealed that most were infested with body lice. Now, this is a clue that you have to concentrate on. First of all, this, like, basically they are in a refugee camp and there was an epidemic outbreak. Patient presented with fever, severe headache, chills, and muscle aches. That could be a lot of different diagnoses that run to your mind, but the most important and high priority click would be a body lice. And these doctors had uh, found that these patients were having in the epidemic outbreak maculopapular rash and petechial rashes on the trunk and limbs, but not on the hands and soles of the feet as you have seen in the earlier case. Now there are 2-3 things you have to concentrate which you learn from your clinical vignette. The clinical vignette previously you learned was because of a tick, and the rash that was present was basically on the hands, the palms and the soles, then it spread inwards. But whereas here the vector is here is lice, and the other way around is the rash is present on the trunks and lips but not on the hands and palms or soles of the feet. And as you can see, there's an image that describes the or depicts the clinical vignette, and this is the body louse, Pediculus corporis. And my question to you is, what is the organism and what is the physical characteristics, etiology, epidemiology, clinical manifestations, pathogenesis, treatment and prevention. So keeping in this mind the spread of the rash not to the hands and soles but all spread all over the trunks and limbs with body louse as the vector, where is an epidemic outbreak. Now this is another major clue that you should clinch diagnosis. Epidemic outbreak was there. So Rickettsia prowazekii is the organism causing this. I'll help you out, don't worry, because this is just for a set induction to gear you up, because this is an induction kind of thing where once we go through the flow of the lesson, you'll be able to know what exactly, this is how you have to learn it. Fine. Today's topic is greetings, Rickettsia. Fine. As I said already, they are gram-negative obligate intracellular parasite or Coccobacillary bacteria, as you have seen in the endothelium lining of the blood vessel. So let me repeat, worth listening. Rickettsia, the entire family Rickettsia are gram-negative. They are obligate intracellular Coccobacillary bacteria. Let me stop or pause here for a time and make you clear that that's the reason why Rickettsia doesn't take up good gram stain. You have to have special gram stain for it because it's an obligate intracellular Coccobacillary bacteria. Fine. They infect the mammals as well as arthropods. Now, whenever arthropods come, they are basically jointed legs, jointed parts they have. And yes, Rickettsia are transmitted in arthropods, which serves both as vectors and also reservoir. They can ask you this as a question. Which are the transmitting agents that can ask both as vectors and reservoirs? Your answer should be arthropods. Both of the Rickettsia consists of both DNA and RNA and is sensitive to antibiotic, which is doxy, which is a drug of choice. Fine, let's talk about the classification. See, my PPTs have been prepared keeping in mind all competitive exams, right from your FMG, your All India, NEET, JIPMER, PGI, AIMS, and also USMLE. So the classification goes by this. You have two families, basically broad families. One is family Rickettsia and Anaplastaceae. In family Rickettsia, you have two genus, Rickettsia and Aurantia. Rickettsia and Aurantia. And in family Anaplastaceae, you have genus Ehrlichia, Wolbachia, Anaplasia, and Neorickettsia itself. Four members such as Coxiella and Bartonella are now excluded from the family. See, this classification is very, very important. As such, Rickettsia come under the miscellaneous group of organisms. Nobody teaches you during your secondary MBBS, or nobody concentrated much, or they might just pass 5 minutes for you to get hold on Rickettsia, which is very difficult because you will be focusing only on Staph aureus or E. coli or other Staph, Salmonella or Vibrio cholera. So please concentrate, worth listening. Classification goes by broad classification, two families, Rickettsia and Anaplastaceae. In family Rickettsia, you have two genus, Rickettsia and Aurantia, whereas in family Anaplastaceae, you have four genus, Ehrlichia, Wolbachia, Anaplasia and Neorickettsia. Former members which were included like Coxiella and Bartonella are now excluded from the family because Coxiella is the only genus which doesn't have an arthropod bone and it is transmitted by inhalation. Something good to learn, very good organism. I'll teach you later on. And Bartonella, yes, Bartonella is not an obligate intercellular parasite. That's the reason why these two organisms have been separated from these families. And Bartonella can grow in cell-free media. Let's go to the next slide. Rickettsia, yes, as I already told you, they are primary parasites found in the alimentary canal of arthropod transmitted to humans by lice, fleas, ticks and mites. all are arthropods. That's the reason why it's called arthropod borne diseases. In humans, they infect the vascular endothelium. There was a good picture that was depicted 2 slides from 4 slides previously. Vascular endothelium and reticular endothelial cells. Now the name rickettsia was after Howard Taylor Ricketts, and who died of typhus fever. Typhus fever is caused by rickettsia, contracted during his studies, and he was a person who discovered this spotted fever rickettsia, of which one of the very important organism is Rickettsia rickettsi. The first clinical case that was explained to you, and we had a good interaction on that. This fever or typhus fever, and he discovered, Howard Taylor Ricketts discovered this spotted fever rickettsia. Another good history, we'll later on talk about how rickettsia prowazekii were discovered. Fine, let's talking about your Rickettsia rickettsi. Yeah, almost all rickettsia appears as pleomorphic gram-negative cocobacilli, nothing new to learn. Non-motile, non-capsulated, nothing new to learn. Yes, as I told you, they are not well, as they are being obligate intercellular organism, they stain bluish purple with Giemsa and Castrinida stain. Okay, and they stain deep red with Machilio and Jimenez stain. Mind you, all these questions are very, very important for you in your 2-marker questions, or might be a pathology, or might be a USMLE clinical vignette. So don't underestimate them, don't underrate them. And they are unable to grow in cell-free media. But whereas Bartonella can grow in cell-free media, grow generally occurs in cytoplasm of infected cells. So mind you, let me repeat again, they are pleomorphic, gram-negative, obligate intercellular cocobacillary. They stain bluish purple with Giemsa and Castrinida stain, deep red with Machivilo and Jimenez stain, unable to grow in cell-free media. Coming to the structure of your rickettsia, the reason why I am talking here is the cell wall, as you have with other gram-negative bacilli, you have, yes, outer membrane, peptidoglycan, lipopolysaccharide, nothing new to learn. It also has a microcapsule which is also present in Staph aureus. If most of the people don't know, learn it now. Microcapsule is also present in Staph aureus. 2 antigenically distinct group, lipopolysaccharide and outer membrane proteins. Now why the reason I am talking about the structure is here. There is something called Wilks-Philipp test, which was discovered by both this person, and this is a heterophile agglutination test, which is done to diagnose typhus fever, caused by rickettsia. This lipopolysaccharide is used basically, which is heat stable. It cross reacts with somatic antigens of non-motile protease strains. Basically, protease is a motile. It has a typical swarming motility. But here you use non-motile protease species. We learned about this, which strains are there. And coming to the pathogenic mechanism, yes, as all gram-negative, it is endotoxin. Basically, it's because of the bites and feces. The feces that is laid down by arthropod, which are rubbed. Basically, there are 2 things which you have to learn, which you will learn later on. One is because of the rub, and one is because of the bite. Fine. What happens? The local lymph, it gets into the local lymph and the micro blood vessels, where it multiplies, which is called primary bacteremia. That's the reason why the patient complains of fever, headache. Later on, the endothelial cells are affected, more micro blood vessels, and the whole body, which lands up with secondary bacteremia. Now this is a picture which we have already discussed. Rickettsia rickettsi in endothelial cells of blood vessel from a patient. Cultivation, they grow in the yolk sac of developing chick embryo. Nothing new learned. You have already learned in bacteriology. Sorry, in the virology. There are 3 methods of viral isolation: EAT, immunized egg, animal inoculation, tissue culture. And talking about the egg, there are 4 parts in eggs: amnion, allantoic, chorioallantoic membrane, and yolk sac. Now yolk sac is a structure where you not only grow rickettsia, but you also grow chlamydia. Fine. Rickettsia are also used to grow on mouse fibroblast, HeLa cells, HIP2 cells, dendroid 6 cells, and continuous cell lines. But if you really ask me, they are not satisfactory. This is an important reason. See, they are not that satisfactory as you expect the results to be. That's the reason why guinea pig and mice are used for isolation of rickettsia from patients. Very important. I gave the title, Life is Full of Ticks and Mites. Nobody likes basically, but they're very important. Right. Genus Rickettsia, based on the clinical parameters, it is divided into 2 groups. One is typhus fever group, spotted fever group. Concentrate, because I think all students in the entire globe should listen this and remember for lifetime. Listen this for one time and remember this for lifetime. So it's worth listening. Basically, the typhus fever group is louse-borne or flea-borne, and louse-borne causes epidemic classical typhus caused by Rickettsia prowazekii, whereas flea-borne is endemic or murine typhus caused by Rickettsia typhi. It's very easy, very good for me to teach you, however good I might be at teaching, but it's very nice to listen also. But once I go from this slide to another slide or go from Rickettsia to chlamydia, I'm sure you might have forgotten what is caused by what. So I'll make it easy for you. How to remember is very easy. Just concentrate. So if you just concentrate in typhus fever group, what do you think is a large letter word? Is it louse or flea? Definitely you would agree that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a 5-letter word, whereas flea is a 4-letter word. And if I ask you another question, which is a big letter word, epidemic or endemic? Let's count on this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically it's a number game. Epidemic is definitely a large letter word compared to your endemic. Let's talk about the organism causing it. Prowazekii is a large letter word compared to typhi. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 10 letter word 5. So what? I think you already got the name. So big letter words go with big, whereas small letter words go with small. That should make their job easy. So nobody in the world or globe can forget this. Louse-borne is causes epidemic or classical typhus. You remember, if you just go back, and there was a term epidemic outbreak that was used to give you a clue basically, and the doctors found lice on the body, and that was a typical classical typhus, and it's caused by Rickettsia prowazekii, which was discovered by Rickettsia prowazekii. Whereas flea-borne, flea, whenever the word flea comes, another thing that should strike you is basically a rat flea. It's basically a rat flea, which is Xenophila chiopis, which also causes or also a vector for plague. Fine, let's talk about the spotted fever group, the second group. It is tick-borne, not louse, and mite-borne. Talking about the tick-borne, there was a clinical vignette. The first clinical vignette this is described to you was Rickettsia rickettsii. The mother complained that he had gone for a hiking, camping and all. This is how they describe. It causes Rocky Mountain spotted fever. How to remember this? I'll tell you later. Rickettsia conuri causes Indian tick typhus. Rickettsia acari causes rickettsial pox, which is caused by a mite. And there are other rickettsia, depending upon the place they were isolated, were given. Like if it was Siberia, it is called Siberica. If it's Australis, it's called Australis. Japan, it was called Japanica. Now I'll help you out how to remember this. Fine. Tick-borne. All these three are tick-borne. These two, 1 and 2. Or if you just concentrate on my pronunciation and the word or letter which I am stressing, that should really help you out to remember the organism and get you hold of the clue. Now let's start. Rickettsia, rickettsii. So this is the letter I am concentrating. Rickettsia, rickettsii causes Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So definitely you should remember that it is caused by tick. It's only thing like basically you should feel for small time that you are a small kid, and this slide will really help you out to crack any MCQs, any clinical vignette, any competitive exams. Believe me. Rickettsia conuri causes Indian tick typhus. Conuri is basically a sun ray kind of thing, ray appearance or sunrise, where Indians do something called Surya Namaskaram. You have to remember that way, that they do the sun ray puja and all. So Indian tick typhus is caused by Rickettsia conuri. Fine. How to remember that Rickettsia acari causes rickettsial pox? Basically, I'll tell you how. Pox is a term used in virology, not in bacteriology. So the only place where you use pox is in Rickettsia, and it is not caused by ticks as in spotted fever. It is caused by mite. And Rickettsia acari means akela, means alone. So there's only one Rickettsia where pox only unique and only mite in this group, in this genus Rickettsia. So all unique is so special about this Rickettsia acari. It causes rickettsial pox and it's caused by mite. I hope you have understood. Please get back to me later on with my email ID, which is displayed there, or any queries you have after you subscribe and like my presentation. Fine. Pathogenesis, yes. Almost all rickettsia arthropod vectors, which also acts as reservoirs. Ticks and bites, mostly by biting. Louse and flea borne. See, the reason why I put this slide, where you have ticks and mite, it is basically by the biting of the tick and mite. But when you have louse and flea, you have auto inoculation. Please concentrate, students. It's very important, worth listening. Auto inoculation, that is by rubbing or scratching of the abraded skin. Most of the students don't concentrate or just jump over. Don't think it is too important for us to remember all these things. What is that? They just think, oh, arthropod, it might have just bitten and that is the root of infection. Sorry, louse, and if it's a louse and flea, if that's the vector, then it is basically because of you scratching and rubbing of the operated skin or mucosa contained by the insect feces. But whereas if it's tick and mite, it is basically because of biting. There are also some other rickettsia where aerosol or inhalation dried louse or flea, that is very, very, very rare basically. Fine. Epidemic typhus, let's go into the detail after having studied the classification, having a good concept. It basically kind of revision. Louse-borne typhus, which is also called classical typhus, which is also called gall fever. Epidemic, actually this had occurred in the World War, and famine was reported, very common in Russia and Eastern Europe belt. The reason why it got the name typhus, typhus means cloud or smoke, a cloudy state of consciousness, you're not that much conscious, and this is the reason why the typhoid fever also has originated from this word typhus initially. Incubation period is 1 to 2 weeks. Starts with fever and chills. Already this is basically teaching slides and all, but you already you have been sensitized with question number 2. Fine. Rash appears on the 4th and 5th day in trunks, limbs, sparing the palms and soles. Patient becomes stuporous, delirium during second week. It remains dormant for years in the lymphoid tissue. Reactivation can occur. There are chances of reactivation or relapse, as you have seen in malaria with Vivax and Ovel. That is called recrudescence typhus. It's also called Brill-Zinsser's disease because they discovered it. I repeat again, there are chances of relapse or reactivation because this rickettsia remained dormant for years in the lymphoid tissue. And this recrudescence typhus is called Brill-Zinsser's disease. Epidemic typhus is caused by Rickettsia prowazekii. Von Prozek, as already discussed about this, died of typhus fever. Another scientist who has given his life while investigating the disease other than Rickettsia rickettsii. Who reservoir host are squirrels. The vector is Pediculus humanis corporis, which is basically a body loss. Coming to the endemic typhus, detailed description. It's caused by Rickettsia typhi or otherwise is Rickettsia musseri. Musseri basically is the mice. Vector, the rat flea, Xenopchila chiopis. Mode of transmission, the bite. I told you, no? So bite of the infected flea when the saliva or the feces are rubbed on. Very rare, it's the aerosol or the dried feces. Very, very, very rare, food contaminated, ingestion of food contaminated with rat and rat's urine or flea feces. Human infection is dead end. Infection from human to human doesn't happen. Let's talk something about Neal-Musser reaction, which is also called Tunica reaction, which is a 2-marker and might have important MCQs, an option given in your competitive exams. Basically, it's just to differentiate Rickettsia prowazekii from Rickettsia musseri or other Rickettsia. Very, very easy. Let's not go into all these details. I don't think every student will remember. Just concentrate on the word or term Neal-Musser. Neal-Musser. Basically, they discovered it. Neal-Musser. So, whoever had discovered it, basically it goes by the invention or discovered what he has discovered. So musseri, Rickettsia musseri was discovered by that. So definitely it is positive for that thing which he has discovered. So that's the reason why that's the reason how you remember that Rickettsia musseri, the reaction which was discovered by Neal-Musser is positive for it, and it is a reason for you to differentiate endemic typhus other way from epidemic typhus. What is the reaction that differentiates epidemic typhus from endemic typhus? So answer is Neal-Musser reaction. Fine. What do you do in this? Blood sample from the infected patient is taken, indoctrinate intraperitoneally and into the male guinea pigs. What happens? Scrotal inflammation, swelling will occur, because of which scrotal becomes large and inflamed. Testis cannot be pushed back into the abdomen because of inflammatory adhesions between the layers of tunica vaginalis. This is tunica reaction or Neal-Musser's reaction. Let's stop here and just give you a break and have you another question on All India Aims of PGI, postgraduate medical entrance examination. The following is the etiology agent of Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Now, as you can see, the rash is all over the trunk, not on the palms and the soles. You can go by that way, or you can go by the mnemonic I shared with you. Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So answer is rickettsia rickettsii. So it's a tick-borne. Fine, good. Let's go to the another genus. After genus Rickettsia, we go to the genus Orencia, which causes scrub typhus. Basically, scrub is basically something like that, jungle or rainforest or dense, something like this. Just keep that beside somewhere in your brain. Let's go back to the genus Orencia. The causative agent of scrub typhus is Orencia shushugamushi. T is silent over here, which was discovered in Japan. Formerly, as I told you, Rickettsia shushugamushi or Rickettsia orencialis. But as there is no, it's not vector borne. It's a not vector borne. It is basically because of inhalation. I'm sorry. It's basically because of the. I'm sorry. I take back my word. It is because of the bite of the larvae of mite. Yeah, scrub typhus basically because of the bite of the larvae of mite. Yeah, Susugam means dangerous, Mushi means insect or mite. It's a place disease basically very highly endemic in Thiruvananthapuram in Tamil Nadu, and area it is found only in area with suitable climate and scrub vegetation. Why I'm teaching all these things is basically when you become a doctor, sit in OP and patient comes from this area and complaining that this is occupation and all, that should really give you a clue to crack the diagnosis. Finally, yes, it is also called chigger-borne diseases. Chiggers is nothing but the larvae of the mite, bitten by the mite when the humans get infected by passing through the mite islands. Four things are very, very essential for this to establish the disease. One is the vector itself, that is the Orencia shushugamushi, the chiggers, that is the larvae of the mites, the rats, which harbor this or reservoirs for these mites, and transitional forms of vegetation, that is the marshy areas. Fine. The typical classical trade of this scrub typhus is eschar. Very, very important. Blackening of the scar, scab, regional lymphadenopathy, 2, and macular papilla rash. 40 to 50% of the cases they complain of this typical. You have to look out for this eschar all over the area when this patient coming from these areas. Non-specific symptoms, very tough nut to crack because almost similarly resembles you to your dengue, chikungunya, and other hemorrhagic borne fevers, and also Pseudomonas, where you have ecthymia gangliosum like this, and also Bacillus anthracis, where you have the eschar found there. Fine, let's come to the Weil-Felix test. This is a big table. Again, I don't make students remember all these things. Yes, you have to concentrate. You have to have a good vision. Like some students are very good at visionary learners, so that's really help you out. If you just, as I told you, Weil-Felix test is a heterophil occlusion test to diagnose the typhus fever when you cross react with non-motile strains of Proteus. What are those non-motile strains? OX19, OX2 and K. It's very easy to remember. Nothing to do with 2K19. Please don't mind. I'm trying to criticize you. This mnemonic for you to remember these terms are 2K19. That is basically could be a MBBS batch. Or you can remember like 2K19 was the area 31st December you had a corona. 2K19. Fine. So that's how you remember the non-motile strains of Proteus. Let's concentrate on the table here. Epidemic typhus, yes, recurrences of epidemic typhus is Brill-Linces disease. So almost both are similar. Good. Endemic typhus is to differentiate epidemic typhus. But if you really take the help of Weil-Felix test, it's very difficult. Whether tunica reaction, yes, Neal-Mousses, that is more significant compared to Weil-Felix test. But as you see, there are 4 plus 3 plus. They are plus or minus, minus or minus. So if I ask you a question, does epidemic typhus differentiate endemic typhus with the help of Weil-Felix test? Your answer should be no. And if I tell you, can a spotted fever group can also differentiate from the typhus fever group? No, because here also you have positive where you have same reaction when you compare with epidemic might be epidemic. So what is that you want to learn from Weil-Felix test? You do not do Weil-Felix test for rickettsial pox because not significant. It is negative for OX 2, K and 19. So what is important? Yes, Krupp typhus. OXK. When you do take the non-motile strains of OXK and cross-react with those serum sample of Krupp typhus, they agglutinate OXK, help you to diagnose Krupp typhus. That's what, and this was the explanation of your Wheel-Phillips test. Sera agglutinate with OXK, sorry, OX19, OX2. It could be epidemic and endemic typhus. If it is OX19, OX2, it could be a tick-borne spotted fever group. But if it is OXK, yes, very good Krupp reaction. Negative for rickettsial pox, Q fever, ehrlichiosis, and Bartonella. There is no point doing Wheel-Phillips test for all these 4 organisms, causing these 4 conditions. What is the significant titer? 1 in 80. Tells you to tell it is possible infection. Let's come to the next family Anaplastaceae. Why I am talking is because as I told you already that this presentation is kept in mind students preparing for also USMLE and All India NEET and all. So that will really help you out for this. So you have 4 genus like Ehrlichia schaffinensis, which causes human monocytic ehrlichiosis, or people students representing for quiz somewhere in All India or state level. These are the questions that they might be asked. Ehrlichia avignea, which causes human granulomatous ehrlichiosis. If you ask me, this is very, very important. Then you have human lymphocytic ehrlichiosis, which is caused by Neorickettsia senutsu. Then you have the Anaplasa phagocytophyllum, which causes human granulocytic anaplasmosis. So please be prepared for these options in MCQs or answers for your questions asked by Quizmaster. Let's go to the next organisms that have been separated from these 2 genus, Anaplastaceae and Rickettsia. Coxiella burnetii, which causes Q fever. The reason why they have been named as Q fever, because for a very, very long time the causative agent was unknown, hence the name query or Q fever. It was later on, organism was later on identified as Coxiella burnetii, which causes this, named after 2 scientists, Cox and Burnett. Fine. Source of infection. Here you have primary, basically zoonotic diseases, infected cattle, sheep, and the goats. And the secretion, basically it could be the feces, it could be the urine, it could be the milk of these animals. And inhalation of infected dust from soil, previously contaminated urine and feces of the deceased animal. Basically also through whenever these animals give birth to the offspring, and those veterinarians and those farmers and all which are very close to this might get occupational exposure to this and get infected. Ingestion of contaminated milk, transfusion, blood transfusion, and so this is also as the picture depicts over here. During birth, the organisms are also shed in the number, and those group of people who are in those environment might also get infected. Coxiella burnetii, yes, it's a pleomorphic gram-negative coccobacillus like your Rickettsia and chlamydia. It should be done in biosafety level 3 because it's a biohazard agent, biological weapon. You can grow them in monkey kidney, virus cell lines and all, and also few animals. Yeah, it's a biological weapon. Bartonella, yeah, it's fastidious, facultative intracellular, slow growing gram-negative bacteria, nothing much to remember. But yes, they invade the mammalian cells and RBC. And organism causing, there are 3 very important, very important: Bartonella bacilliformis, Bartonella quintana, and Bartonella henselae. Let's proceed from here. Each organism has its own importance. Bacillella bacilliformis, another scientist who got infected with this Carrion's disease. The other name for Bartonella bacilliformis conditions are Carrion's disease or Oiro fever or Verruga peruana. The vector is sandfly. Sandfly is also a vector for Leishmania donovani, mind you. Fine. So what is a gram-negative pleomorphic strict aerobe found inside the erythrocyte of the infected patients? It causes what? Verruga penu. As you can see, nodular lesions all over the body. Something more like smallpox lesions. It will be later on produce ulcers. Coming to Bartonella quintana, it causes trench fever. Trench is a word used where the soldiers used to go and hide under the tunnels and all. 5-day fever. It also causes endocarditis and bacillary angiomatosis, a condition where the blood vessels are infected. Transmitted body louse, do not possess flagella, shows twitching movement by fimbriae. Fimbriae is a non-motile, not used for basically motility, but used for adhesion. But here is an exception, and this can be a question for you in Viva and MCQs again. Which is the organism which moves are having twitching motility by fimbriae? So grows on rabbit or sheep dead. Bartonella henselae, it causes cat scratch disease, very important. Cat, don't get confused with cat bite fever. Cat bite fever is caused by Pasteurella multocida. This is a cat scratch disease, and especially in AIDS patient, it can also cause to bacillary angiomatosis. Bacillary peliosis, it also causes bacteremia and endocarditis. So almost all Bartonella causes endocarditis. The special stain is used to stain this organism, Warthin starry silver stain, where they look like cluster of bacillus. Warthin starry silver stain is also used for Helicobacter pylori. Thank you very much. I hope that was worth it for your time, and please do not forget to subscribe, like, and please try to give your reviews and comments in the box. Thank you very much.